So dads, I want to talk to you today about your greatest building project. Us dads are builders in one way or another. We like to put stuff together. We like to see how stuff works. And God has given us a special assignment. There's nothing more important that you and I do than to build the relationships and the family that God has entrusted to us. Building a family is a way of reflecting the God who created us. I found a couple of verses in the book of Hebrews that describe God as a builder. Hebrews 3 and 4, we read, Jesus has been found worthy of greater honor than Moses, just as the builder of a house has greater honor than the house itself. And I'll get this, for every house is built by someone, but God is the builder of everything. So if you have that drive to put something together, to make it work, that comes from God himself. He's the builder, and he's put that builder drive inside us dads. Building a family is the most important and the most lasting thing we can ever do, because we're working with God's creation in the form of the very people that he brings into this world, and we're building for eternity. If you were here back when Dean Braxton was here, you'll know what a powerful word he had to say about his experience of being in God's presence in heaven when he was clinically dead for that hour and 45 minutes, and how he saw his family and how he saw generations back, family that he didn't even know that he had, that was all there waiting for him. Because you see, God is using us to build family. So what are some of the tools we need in our toolkit? Well, the first one that I want to focus on is a tape measure. Building starts before you build. Building starts with a design, and a design provides you with measurements, and that's why you need a tape measure. You just can't go out there and say, I'm going to build a swing set, or I'm going to build a new chair, or I'm going to put up a cupboard or whatever, and just sort of fudge it, like so and like so. And did you ever do that? Come on, I know you guys probably have. Might work for a piece of firewood. It's not going to come out right when you're building something. But you have to have a design. And if there's one word that I hope sticks in your hearts, guys, it's that word design. What are you building? Now, the society around us has a whole lot of ideas of what your family should or shouldn't be. Our society has a whole lot of ideas of what a family is or isn't. But what are you building? There are all kinds of projects out there. There are all sorts of things that you could do or that you could let somebody else do. But what specifically are you building? And Suzanne and I have a family with 3 kids and our 7 grandkids and his wonderful sons-in-law and daughter-in-law. But Sue and I are building something that's unique, fortunately, I'm sure, for the rest of the planet. But it's unique. It's something that just the 2 of us can do. And it has to be built by the design that God has for us. We can't just let somebody else come in and decide what that's going to look like. You don't build a family by committee, of having just all of the forces in the world around us kind of speaking in what they think we should do. You'll be changing your plan every 5 minutes. Do you know that God has a design for your family? And God has measuring tools so that you can know that you're measuring up to what God wants you to do. So if you don't remember anything else, dads, I want you to go and think about this and go home and talk to your wife about this and think about this with your kids. What is this family supposed to look like? What's it supposed to feel like? Where does God fit into this project? We're not just building something that we see on TV or that we see on some sitcom. We're not just building something that we blogged on some internet post. We're building, and we're not just replicating what our parents did, for good or ill. We're building something, and we have the chance to build it with a design that goes right back to the Creator himself. Now, if you're going to do that, you're going to need a measuring device of some sort, the measuring stick, the measuring tape. And the first thing I want you to think about when you're building with God's plan is to think that instructions are here. God has given us not only the design, but the way to measure to see whether we're matching up to the design. If you ever built anything, you know, first thing you do is you get a little drawing, and on that drawing are numbers. And they're telling you this piece is 11 3/4 and this one is 6 1/4. And there you go. And you get out your tape measure and you begin to measure and mark. And what do they say? What is it? Cut twice, measure once? No. Measure twice, cut once, right? So what are God's measurements for us? Well, I'm going to take you to one place that we all know of and that at least provides us with a starting point for thinking about the design that God has for the family we're building and whether we're measuring up to that design. And I'll take you to Exodus chapter 20, the 10 Commandments. If you look at those 10 Commandments, the first 4 are all about putting God first. Putting God first. You remember, no competing gods. You shall have no other gods before me. No false gods. We're to make Him first and foremost in our lives. Now, believe me, your kids know whether or not you're measuring up in this area of your life. Your kids know whether the family that you're building really focuses on God first, or whether God is just something that happens 1 hour a week or 1 hour a month or whatever. They know whether God is important in the project that you're building. Of course, you're building a project with people who are just as sharp and bright as you are, and they're watching all the time. First 4 of the 10 Commandments are all about getting God first. If you're saying, well, you know, my wife is the more spiritual one in the family, come on, guys, a lot of us have been there at one time or another in our lives. Your kids get the message, and this is the message they get. The spiritual stuff isn't really that important. Oh, it's important to mom, but dad doesn't do that. Kids pick up on that. And surveys have been done, and they have found that when dads go to church, and I know I'm preaching to the choir right now, thanks guys for being here, but when dads go to church, kids go to church. When moms go to church and dads stay home, kids end up staying home with dad. So your kids are watching to see whether in the design of the family, God comes first. First thing you can do, most important thing you can do, is put Him first. And this is how we design the family around God's design. We build Him in to the project. We don't just slap a little bit of God on like a little paint at the end of the project. We build Him into the very fabric of this is who we are as a family. The 5th commandment reads like this, and this is Exodus 20, verse 12. Honor your father and mother, so that you may live long in the land the Lord your God is giving you. When I think about my 3 kids and those 3 wonderful people who are my new kids by being married, and I think of my grandkids, and I think about the possibility of great-grandkids, I want them all to live long in the land the Lord their God is giving them. I want them to outlive me by so far they can't even remember my middle name. Okay, I just want them to live. And God says, building a family, you build honor for your parents into that family. You build it by design into the family. You don't just kind of hope it happens, you make it happen. Well, what's that look like? Well, first of all, you honor your own parents. If your parents are alive, you're going to call them today. And you're going to hang out, and you're going to send cards, and you're going to remember them at special days, and you're going to make visits, and so on. If you have a loved one who has passed away, you talk about that person, and you let your family know what granddad did, what kind of person he was, because they never got to meet him. I've got one grandfather that I knew barely at the age of 3. I have 1 or 2 memories of him, and he passed away. The other one I never met at all. And the only way I know them is from what my dad told me about his dad, what my mom told me about her dad. But they honored those people, and you can do that same thing. You might be saying to me, well, my dad wasn't that honorable. Well, my mom wasn't that honorable. Well, go find the things that were honorable, because they did bring you into the planet. Thank you very much. And, you know, better to say nothing than to say something bad, but go find something you can be thankful for. And cut them some slack. I mean, if they did some terrible things to you, then you need to pray through that and ask God's forgiveness. You don't have to be buddy-buddy with somebody that's not a safe person to be around, but find ways to give whatever honor you can give. And here's an even more important project. You're going to build the measuring stick of honor into your family, honor your kid's mother. Hello? You got one you can practice on right there. Honor your father and mother. Those kids, well, you really can't tell your kids now, you're supposed to honor me. That doesn't go real well. That's her job. But have your kids honor mom. And you know how they learn to honor mom? Monkey see, monkey do. You honor mom, they honor mom. You show respect to your wife, they show respect. If you're shouting, fighting, and carrying on, you've taught them how to talk to that lady in your life. And when you come down on them and don't talk to your mother like that, and they're going, well, you do, and you've got about that much credibility. Honor their mom. Now, does that mean you always agree? Haha, yeah, no. Do your disagreement where the kids aren't around. Go have a little chat. Go take a drive. Wait till the kids are in bed. Talk it out. Figure it out. And one of the most important things that I learned as a husband through some wonderful counseling was just this principle that the two of us, mom and dad, are always, always, always a united front in front of the kids. If mom said they can do X and I walk in and I'm like, what? Until mom and I get alone and talk it over, whatever she said goes. Otherwise, I'm throwing her under the bus. And I don't like being under the bus, and I don't want her to be under the bus. Now, we might have a little chat afterwards and go, I really have some concerns about that, and we have to work that out. But show the kids you honor each other. This is especially important when the mother of your children is no longer your wife. The ex. The ex. You don't have to agree with what your ex did. You don't have to agree. You don't have to say that you love that person. And you don't have to get all teary-eyed about that former marriage. But you can honor that person who brought these wonderful kids into the world. And you can show your kids that they can honor mom, and it's safe for them to have an ex-wife of yours as their mother. You can help them celebrate that gift. Don't rob your kids of that relationship. My son went through a divorce some years ago, as you know, and a lot of pain, just a hard, terrible situation like I'm sure many of you have been through. The thing that stands out to me, though, is I've never heard him say a negative thing about his ex-wife. And he had plenty of room to say things just like everybody does when they go through a divorce. What was he doing? Well, he was showing his kids honor for the person who brought them into the world. And how that works out, and how that looks as they go forward, they got to figure all that stuff out. But honor your father, your mother. Guys, it's on us to build that intentionally into the fabric of our family. Now, the last 5 commandments are all about how we treat each other. First one addresses the issue of hostility. Remember, do not murder. Well, Jesus redefined that do not murder command in terms of how we feel toward each other, whether we harbor grudges and animosity. We want to have families where forgiveness becomes a very quick reflex. But that only happens by design. Families are great incubators of resentment. Hello? Grudges, hurt feelings. And you find it out at when? Christmas time. Or when the family gets together. Family reunions. Bring your gun. It's like hard time. You got to build that reflex of forgiveness into your family, or it will not come by itself. You shall not commit adultery. You have got to intentionally build purity into your family. This society will not help you. And if you're having trouble with midnight sessions in front of your computer, guys, get some help. Your kids are going to find out eventually. Your wife's going to find. You are bringing demons into your home. You're building that evil right into the fabric of your family. I've talked to a number of guys who have talked about the problems that they've had with pornography. And you know when they started? In their early teens. And do you know how they started? Some family member, maybe it was dad's pile of stuff, or maybe it was an uncle or somebody else, exposed them. It wasn't like somebody came from the other side of the planet and exposed them to impurity. So we need to build that into the fabric of our home, into the way we talk about the opposite sex. No place for dirty jokes. And let's watch out for the movies we watch and the stuff that goes down. Little eyes are recording everything. Jesus redefined the adultery command in terms of your thought life, of lusting after someone else. We need to be intentional about this. That's the yardstick that God gave us. He's not trying to rob us of a good time. He's trying to make sure we live well in the land He gave us. Don't steal. We don't want a home where kids are going through your wallet. Hey, fat wallet or skinny wallet. I don't want my kids going through and, snitching whatever little bit of money might be there. So we want to build that respect for each other's property and time. But dads, you don't want to steal from your kids either. Well, what do you mean steal from my kids? Well, you could. When they're having that ball game, they've worked all season to be there, and your kid's on the mound, or maybe it's your kids on the ice, or your kids on the court, and you got other things you could be doing. You could be working some overtime. You could be out playing golf, doing whatever you want to do. Maybe it'd be better to go to that game and stand there and watch your kid rather than stealing that moment from that kid. You'll never be able to get it back. It's one of my great regrets. I look back on things I could have done with my kids, and the reality is, once they grow up, you don't get to go back and say, oh, can we do that weekend over again? Can we do that night over again? Can we do that afternoon over again? Don't steal from each other. Make sure your house is a place where people tell the truth. Don't bear false witness against each other, your neighbor. Well, we're neighbors in a family. We need to be intentional about truth speaking. Now, last week we talked about, I think it was last week, truth and grace. We're going to speak the truth in love, but we're going to be a family, be intentional about being a family where we talk things through, where we don't just keep little secrets. We don't just have these subjects where, well, we can never talk about that, and everybody knows what they are. These elephants that sort of camp in the front room, and everybody tiptoes around and pretends there's no elephant here. Have a family we can talk. We can talk things out. And finally, don't covet. Well, if families can be places where we can grow resentment, they are also places where we can grow jealousy. And a good way to keep from doing that is to treat your kids the same. You may have a favorite. You may have one that's on the bottom of your list. You may feel like the kid has put you on the bottom of their list. Treat them the same. Kids keep score. Hello? Do you know kids keep score? Like, do you have any idea how much? Remember when you were a kid? Kids keep score. They are insecure. They are constantly trying to figure out whether there's a pecking order to this family. And they already have come up with some sort of a myth in their heads about dad likes her more, and mom likes him more, and we got to work against that. We have got to design a family where coveting and jealousy doesn't have to happen. Otherwise, it will happen. When I was in my church before I was here, they had a Christian school, and I was on the staff of the church, and my daughter was going to the school. My daughter was like second grade. And she wasn't getting ready for school on time, which made me late for work, which was not going to work. So I said to her, okay, if you can be ready such and such a time, we get to school on time, 5 days in a row, I'll take you to McDonald's for pancakes. Little eyes went, bing. She was in her little uniform. She was ready. We're in the car. 5 days in a row. On Friday, we went to McDonald's. I'll never forget seeing that little kid sit there just beaming with her little plate. Remember those little dippy plastic containers? I mean, how you ever even eat a pancake? Put her syrup on. She had dad all to herself, and she ate her stuff, her little legs kicking away under the seat. And then she went home and told her brother and sister that she went to McDonald's for pancakes. From then on, she only went every third week. Because we all went to pancakes. But one-on-one. It had to be just as special for kid number 2 and just as special for kid number 3. It wasn't just like, I'll take you all. No. Exactly the same. And everybody got to be special. So you've got to design your family so that jealousy doesn't have places to grow. It's going to try to get in. Kids are insecure. Kids make up things in their heads. Build with God's tape measure. Now, when you've taken on the project and you've got everything measured, you're going to find you need stuff like this. I deliberately left the battery off so I wouldn't blast your ears. When I'm building a project and I find out I need some pine, and I need a piece of pine that's 5 inches, 5 foot, 1 inch, and 3/4 long. You know what? I go down to Sticks and Stuff, and they don't have one of those. Oh, they'll sell me an 8-footer. Well, I don't need an 8-footer. But I do need an 8-footer if I want a 5 foot, 1 inch, and 3/4 piece of wood. I bring it home. I measure. Where's my measure? I measure it. And then I cut that thing down. Maybe I put various shapes on it. Maybe I drill holes in it. I customize the raw material. And that's what you all do when you build. You build a house. You get a pile of 2x4s, 2x6s, trusses, all that kind of stuff. Most of it needs to be customized for the house you're building, even if it means just taking off a little bit. And the same thing is true when we're building according to God's design. Our society provides us with wonderful raw materials for building our family. It provides education, it provides entertainment, it provides outlets for sports and other programs. It provides medical services, food, transportation, cell phones, other devices, all kinds of things that we can build into our family. These are things that can make our family better. My wife and one of my daughters, they must text 20 times a day, to this day, every day. And the pictures are going back and forth. And what a fantastic thing to keep family connected. But you've got to customize the stuff that you get from the lumberyard. I mean, how much screen time is available? 24/7. How many cable channels are available? Hey, 100 and something? How many internet pages could you check out? Well, there's no end to those. How many sporting events are there for your kids to take part in? How many after-school events? How much is too much? How much is enough? How much is right for our family? How much is right for this young person at this point in their life? How much is right for mom who has to do a lot of this driving, or dad who has to do all of this stuff? How does that work for our family? We have to customize what the culture offers. You see, that's why it's so important to have a design. Because you know how much you need. Because you know what your project's supposed to look like. What it's supposed to feel like. You know what those values are that you say will not be broken. And you put God first in your life. Is He first on your calendar? As you parcel out the days and the hours of the day and what happens on this day and what happens on that day, is there room for youth group? Is there room for Sunday morning? Granted, there are going to be days when other things take place, but overall, does God come first? Is there time in our family to pray? Is there time for us to even sit down at the table together and share and talk? When do these things happen? We have to customize. We need to be absolutely ruthless with the stuff that comes from our culture. I mean, when I'm going to cut a board, I don't just wave this thing over it, you know. No, I mean, there's that's really sharp. Really sharp. And it makes a lot of noise. And so when it's time, it's like, board, you're getting it. You're getting all of it. Because you're going to be the size I say you're going to be. I'm not going to have this board just sticking out in some funny way, ruining my whole project. So we need to build with intentionality and cut things down to size according to God's design. Not easy sometimes. A lot of good things. In fact, usually, what do they say? The good is the enemy of the best. Usually the things that get in our way are the things that are really great, but there's just too many of them. We just can't fit them all in. I was thinking about this, talk about preaching yesterday. I was thinking of one of those all-you-can-eat buffets. The point isn't all you can eat. Hello? As great as that sounds, no. You're not supposed to go in and eat it all. You're supposed to have choice of all of it. But it's not one of these contests to see whether you can start at the beginning of the counter and just empty tray after tray after tray till you get to the end and fall over. We live in an all-you-can-eat culture. There's too much of everything. We had an exchange student some years ago from Russia. And I mean, this was back in the 90s, I guess. Just after the glasnost and the wall had come down, and he came over here, and he came over with money, and he was going to buy he wanted to buy stuff. He's a young kid. And we're going to, I don't know, some store with big TVs and this and that, and he's like, well, why don't you have one of those? And why don't you have one of those? And why don't you have this? Our house didn't have all the fancy stuff. I said to him, there's so much stuff in our culture, we just have to pick what we're going to have. We just, how many of these things can I even put in my house? He was coming out of a place where there was just such a sense of impoverishment. And that's how it is. We build by design. Cut stuff down. Talk it over if you're feeling stressed out, if you're like looking at your calendar, you don't have room to breathe, you don't even know how summer's going to happen, sit down with your wife and get out the calendar and talk about it. I know some families have had to say to their kids, look, it's all good, but you can only do X number of sports, right? You can't do 3 of them the same season, right? You need a break. Or you can do this after school thing, or you're going to be in the drama club, or you're going to be in whatever these things are, but you need a little bit of time to get your homework done too. And all of this goes into building that design. Now the last thing I want to talk to you about is sandpaper. Because the final stage of any project is finishing, and you want to finish well. When you build something, and Marie is a good one for this, you understand that what people see is what that project's all about. It's what they see. You put a lot of cool stuff in that railing you built, or the post that you built, and then you covered the whole thing up so that it looked right. Because finishing well is what people see, what people experience. Let's say you build a chair. You work on this thing, and you get the wood, and you cut the wood, and you're drilling holes, and then you got nicks and bumps on it, and so you're sanding, and you're scraping, and everything. What's the last thing you do with it? When it's perfectly smooth, you put that finish on. We call it the finish for a reason, because it's the last thing you do. When you've put the finish on, you're finished. And that's what people see. That's what they feel when they put their hand on that wood. When they sit down, that's what wraps around them. Now, if you're raising kids and they're in high school, you're already in sandpaper time. You're going to get very few opportunities to get out the big tools. When you're raising preschoolers, it is hands-on. We are handing out cards for diapers here. It's just, this kid can't do anything. When you get high school kids, most of your work is done. And what you're doing is you're finishing. Now, if you look at the sandpaper, this one says 60 on the back. This one says 150 on the back. This one says 220 on the back. If you know anything about sandpaper, the higher the number, the smoother the paper. So you want to start with the 60. That's pretty scratchy, see? That'll take stuff off, but it leaves a lot of scratches. And this 150 is a lot smoother than that. That'll take out the scratches that I made with the 60. And then the 220, well, that stuff's just real smooth, and you can go right up to these real fine grits. And then you put on that beautiful finish. So when you're raising kids, what paper are you using as you're finishing the project? You're probably going to use more of the 60 with a ninth grader. I can promise you're going to be using the 220 with a senior in high school. You want to have a plan to implement that design so that you can be more and more hands-off, more and more light touch. putting down that finish so that your young person can go out and start that project all over again. The thing I desire for each of you, and I'm sure you would desire this for yourselves, is that the young people that you are raising or have been raising become your best friends for the rest of your life. That was the biggest surprise to me when I thought 18. You know, we were in the, when they're 18, whew, like, we're done, you know. I was like counting it, 18. Well, I found out that wasn't the way it worked at all. It was like building that piece of furniture, and you work, and you work, and you work, and you work, and you finally get done. And then when you find out all of a sudden you've got a beautiful piece of furniture that you can enjoy for years and years. And actually the building part was just this intense time of work before you sat in that chair and watched TV for the next 20 years. And I discovered that having my adult children, that was like, payoff isn't even the right word. It's like all of a sudden, oh, that's why we did all this. So we could have these best friends to do life with. I was doing the math this year. This year will be our 45th year married. So we're 44 years married right now. Been a grandparent 22 of those 44 years. That doesn't seem right. I mean, it's like, what? Half of my married life, I've been a grandparent. But then that gets back to this, you do this work for a time, this building, intense building, finding God's design, doing the construction, cutting out the things that don't matter, trying to finish well. And then, God willing, there will be years and years of enjoying and sharing in and being blessed by something that God has helped you create. That's my desire for you. And I just want to encourage you, have a good toolkit and follow God's design. Can we bow our heads together? Lord, what a powerful thing it is that you would entrust human beings to human beings. Your greatest handiwork. So precious that you would send your Son to die on a cross for us. And I just pray a blessing out over each dad that is here, each dad that's hearing this, watching this message on the internet or on cable TV. Just a special blessing. Lord, let them find your design and have the courage, patience, the love, the grace, the humility to work it out bit by bit, move by move, conversation by conversation. And I pray that same blessing for them, Lord, in the years to come, of having their best friends be these young people that were at one time in need of a diaper change or sitting in a car seat. And we give you thanks, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen. Don't want to discourage you guys. If you need help in any area, we all do. And I would encourage us to reach out. We'd love to chat with you if there's some area that you're looking to get some support with or some help with. People have done this before. And so, God's got a good plan. And if it's hit something and you're going, wow, I don't know how to do that, let's start a conversation and we'll see what God's doing. God bless.